Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video we're going to be continuing with our 3 Rideamatics project, specifically looking at our green 1961 and doing some work on the engine, which for now we have just placed back into the tractor. Off camera now, we've just pulled the engine out of the tractor so that it's on the workbench and we've got a bit more space to work on it. Now we have a load of parts here that we're going to be installing today. As you can see, we've got 2 different backing plates, and the reason why we need one of these is, if I hold this up to here, you can kind of see how it's been damaged in the past. This one has a bearing in the back of it, whereas this one has a bronze bushing, and we don't actually know which kind of style this one will be. I'm guessing it'll be a bearing one like this, seeing as that's kind of what this shape looks like on here, but we'll have to see. And whichever one the engine has, we'll just put that corresponding style backing plate on there. We also have a replacement flywheel here, and a pulley to go on the side of the flywheel as well, and then the belt from here will go to the starter generator, and that's how that is kind of fed. And we've got 2 different pieces of engine cowling here, and the one we're going to use is this one. The reason why we're not going to use this red one is because a couple of the bolt holes are very badly damaged. That would take quite a bit of welding to fix, or washers, but we don't really fancy doing that because it won't be very secure. And as you can see, this has this kind of inner lip here, which doesn't work with the pulley, because that needs to go through there and come out on the other side. Now, this cowling did have the same lip, but because all of the bolt holes and everything are intact, we thought this was a better candidate to change, to get rid of that lip, so that the pulley fits through there like so. So what we did was the same as the process that we went through on our orange 1962 Rideamatic to make that engine cowling fit. Bolted this in the mill on the rotary table, mill cutter against it, and then just turned the rotary table and went around it until the hole was large enough for the pulley to go through. So those are all of the parts that we've got. We'll be hopefully installing all of these today, and we've got a bit of maintenance to do on this engine as well before we try and test it. Just quickly off camera, we've taken off this bit of metal that a previous owner had put on there as a guard around these 2 kind of pulley spaces, seeing as the guard that goes on the side kind of covers the side of it but not the front, so I assume they did that for health and safety, but that would have stopped anyone putting a powered attachment on the front, because that uses this belt slot. That's beside the point of what we're doing now, which is we're going to pull this belt guard off so that we can take the belt off as well, because that's not really something we want flying about when we're trying to test this at some point later. Put that out. That bolt didn't actually take too much to get off, so that's good. Nothing seized or anything. Pull that off the back. It's interesting, the belt was almost kind of seized to the pulley. I think this has been sitting outside in the past, which is why it's got so much rust on it, and that pulley will probably want cleaning up before it's in use again. But at least this is out of the way now. Now we'll talk about our plan of action with this engine. As I'm undoing the carburetor, which is going to be the first thing to come off, then we can give this a clean, which is a bit odd, this carburetor really, because most of it is oxidized and looks quite bad, except for the bowl on the bottom, which actually looks all right. And if that's something to go by for kind of age of the carburetor, then It appears to be nearly new, which is also echoed in the fact that there's no wear on the throttle body, which is good. But once this is off, we can chuck it in the ultrasonic cleaner, and that can be going in the background. Then once we've got this off, we're also going to pop the head off, because at the cost of a head gasket, we'd like to know what's actually going on with this engine, because as we've said before, this threw a flywheel in the past, and we'd like to know if there's a reason for that, or if that event itself has caused any damage to the rest of the engine before we try and start it up, because we don't really want events repeating themselves. So that's why the head will be coming off after this. Once we've checked that that's all alright, assuming there's no massive curveballs in there, we will then take this side off the engine, replace the backing plate, and then everything can start to go back together. Obviously we'll put a new head gasket on and clean up under there as well, and then hopefully the carburetor will be clean, and then some of the other parts that we showed you in a previous clip will be able to go on as well. So I'll just finish this off. This is a bit fiddly because I don't have much room to play with on here at all with these bolts. Now you join us in the process of trying to take the head off. Now the reason we'd started without you is because we wanted to try to make sure that this stud by the exhaust port was alright, because that is the most likely one to seize. And guess what, when we were trying to take it out, we found that it is snapped, and we believe that this was actually snapped before we got to it, because this all looks pretty old, the kind of snap marks, and so does the top of the kind of snapped rest of the bolt looks pretty weathered as well, so we don't think that was from us. Another thing we've noticed is we took the hood bracket off of that bolt, which is actually a Whitworth bolt. There shouldn't be anything Whitworth anywhere near this tractor. And this goes into this kind of artificial platform thing, which is screwed onto one of the studs, which is really not how these hood brackets are meant to be, but it is how it is. So clearly this has been bodged about a bit in the past and doesn't give us great hope for the rest of it. But we will start taking the rest of them off now. I will just take this 7/16 bolt off the side here, and then I'll take undo the nuts on those 3 studs, and then this bit of cowling can come off, and that gives us access to the rest of the head bolts. Hopefully none of the rest of them are snapped, because one snapped bolt is enough problems to deal with really, seeing as easy outs aren't usually easy and don't get things out, but that's the kind of stuff that we're going to have to try to recover the remainder of that head bolt. Hopefully these will be easy though, if it would fit. I don't know if this is actually the right size. Oh, it is for this one. Oh, yeah, that was nice and easy. I think that's probably 9/16.
No, it's not.
Great, so it's some sort of size in between the two, unless that's just poorly fitting. No. Great.
Time to reach for the Whitworth spanners again, I think.
Yeah, so we'll cut here, try and find the right sockets and whip these off. Well, that took some work. We think we've actually snapped another bolt, which is this one. We've never known this bolt to snap before on one of these engines, so this really isn't our lucky day. And we've got 2 kind of half bolts that we've got to fish out after this. But we also spent ages trying to unstick the head gasket, because that was adamant it wasn't going anywhere. But now that we've got it unstuck, let's try and have a look. We haven't seen this yet, so you'll be seeing it for the first time with us. There we are. Got the usual carbon-y mess. And you can see the remnants of those studs, which we might actually be able to grip and get out. That might not be too bad, hopefully. Look on the underside of there. Again, a bit of carbon. Doesn't look too bad. I can't see any markings on the piston, but I'm sure if we give that a bit of a clean up, we can have a look to see the state of the bore and see if there's any stampings on the top of the piston for any oversized pistons or anything like that in the past. Update time now. We've had a clean up and we can kind of see what's going on here. Now the head doesn't look in too bad condition, however we haven't actually checked it for flatness or anything like that. The head gasket is just strange. I'm not actually sure what it's made of. Doesn't look homemade either, so a bit confusing, but that's being disposed of, so that's fine. When it comes to the head, as you can see, there's a lot of oil on here. That's releasing agent, because this stud here was snapped at the top and is seized into the block along with the other two, one of which we snapped. So all three of those need unseizing and extracting somehow, and we don't want to rush doing that because that's just going to lead to us breaking them even more or not actually being able to pull them out at all. So we want to be able to take our time with these and leave them to soak in releasing agent for a little while so that we have the best chance of actually getting those out. On the plus side though, if I move the piston down, the board doesn't actually look too bad. There's no significant scratches or anything on there. Now it seems like the bottom of the bores on these engines is where most of the wear kind of ends up, but obviously we can't check that with the piston in, and we're not taking that out today. So the next job that we're going to move on to is taking this side of the engine off so that we can replace this backing plate. We could, in theory, take off the coil and stuff first, but I doubt the HT lead is going to be kind of threaded through that hole easily, so we might as well take the whole lot off as one. We're probably going to tip the engine on its side for this, so we will do that now and come back to you in just a second to take this plate off. We've got the engine on its side now, and we've already drained the oil previously. I'm going to take all of this rubbish off of the top of here, because I'm not actually sure what all of these shims and stuff are doing on here. They shouldn't be there, so they'll probably be disposed of mostly anyway. Now, as I said before, we're going to take the coil and everything off with the backing plate. So it's just 4 bolts on this. I will loosen them all up at similar time. And these aren't too tight, thankfully, or seized or anything like that, which is good. They're not loose by any means, but better than those studs. Didn't really think about that, did I? Gonna have to do this up a bit to actually get the spanner out. Oh, that's annoying. There we are. Have to do that one with the open-ended spanner. We've got all of the bolts out now, and we've got it so that it spins by breaking the seal with the gasket. However, pulling it off is a bit of an issue because the bushing or bearing, probably bearing, is quite tight on the shaft. So it's probably going to require both me and my cameraman to pull this off, one of us kind of levering underneath and the other one kind of gently tapping on the crankshaft so that has a bit of vibration to get it moving. And we'll try and do this off camera so that we have the best chance of succeeding without causing any more damage to the engine, and we'll come back in a second hopefully with this off. We've been having no success kind of prying this off, so we've detached the coil and all of that stuff, and into those holes we've put some 1/4-20 threaded rod and then put a puller on here as well. So we're going to try to use this puller instead, and hopefully we get better results with this. I'm hoping that sound is just it kind of moving.
Yes, I think it's moving. Yeah.
Okay, good. It is. Yep. prefer it not to be making those noises though. Hopefully there'll be some sort of explanation as to why that's happening.
It could be that the bearing's still on the end of the crankshaft, but we'll find out.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be, but we'll see. Nearly there. Oh, that is off, so I'm going to lift this up and see what happens. Great, so the bearing is there. That's going to need something else to pull it off, but at least this part's off and we know that it's a bearing one now. Now it isn't the next day, it's actually the next week, and we're already quite a way through the day today because we are pretty stumped as to how to get this bearing out. We've tried many different pullers. We can't get a three-legged puller on there because of this part of the crankshaft here, the web of it. That gets in the way, and our two-legged pullers weren't really the right size. So we tried to make up a combination of the two using the three-legged puller legs on our two-legged puller. But while that fitted on there, that still didn't do the job. And that bearing is very determined not to go anywhere, so we're resorting to plan B. Now we've taken the bearing out of our backing plate here, which is unfortunate because this is actually a nicer bearing than the one that's already on there. That does look a bit mucky because we've oiled it up to make sure that it will actually work, but we've cleaned up the kind of mating surface on here and on the outside of the bearing, and we're effectively just going to push this on there so that we don't have to take that bearing off at all. Now there is a gasket here, so we'll probably just put some gasket sealer on there as well and not touch the gasket. And so this is going to have to go on here, something like this, and if I kind of start to put that on, I can feel that's going to be a good interference fit, which is what we want for that bearing. Now we're probably going to use something like this bit of pipe just to kind of tap this down. Obviously we're going to have to be very careful with this because we've got an oil seal there that we don't want to damage or equally push out, because that really wouldn't be helpful. And as soon as we can, we'll get some of these bolts kind of threaded in so that we are tapping it straight down rather than moving it side to side, because we don't want to be spreading gasket sealer everywhere and kind of ruining the seal there. Now, seeing as pretty much everything else on this engine so far hasn't gone to plan, we're going to do this off camera and see how far we get, and hopefully this time we'll actually come back to you with good news for once. That actually wasn't too difficult. We probably should have done that on camera. As you can see, this backing plate is now on. Something that I forgot to mention in the previous video is that I'm sure that we would be able to get that bearing off easily if we were to take the crankshaft out of the engine so that we could actually get level with kind of the back of the bearing. But obviously that would require taking the crankshaft fully out, probably the sump off, disconnecting the conrod from the crankshaft, and then obviously putting it back in. We'd have to make sure that all of the timing stuff is lined up, which we weren't too confident with, and that's probably asking for trouble disassembling the entire engine, and obviously that would take quite a while as well. So that is why we've gone down this route, and for now at least we think that it's gone to plan. Now when it came to pushing it on, we did find a different bit of pipe to use, and this is wider diameter so that it's around the same size as kind of the outer part of the bearing, and then we cut these little notches out of it for these three parts of the aluminium casting here to go around them so that we could kind of push a bit more evenly, and that went on very easily. Lined the bolts up, got those in quite quickly, so the last bit went down straight. The gasket sealer's kind of gone a bit everywhere, but that always does, so that's kind of the expectation, and that should set quite quickly as well. So in theory that is that job done now, and obviously we still have the issue of 3 stuck studs on the top here. Now our plan for these, we're going to drip feed them releasing agent over quite a long period of time, but try to do it very frequently so that those actually have a chance of coming out. And then something that we've had an idea of, but we're not fully sure on at the moment, is making up some sort of heat protection gasket to go over the top of the engine here, and then possibly welding nuts onto the stuck studs so that we have something to grip on to try to wind them out. Obviously we don't want any kind of heat warping in any of the components of this area, whether it's valves or the bore, anything like that. So we're going to have to be very careful if we go down that route, which is why we'd prefer to go down the releasing agent route first, but we'll have to see how that pans out. Now, these studs will have to be a job for another day, because we have very quickly run out of time today, and the work that we've done on this engine in this episode has kind of highlighted the problem that we've run into a few times recently, which is that in a lot of our projects we've got some very long jobs going on, some of which can't actually be shown on camera very well. So we end up taking multiple weeks to make a video when it comes to just the recording stage, and then obviously longer than that to kind of process ready for all of you to watch them. So this is obviously taking quite a while to progress on some of our projects, and we want to keep up with doing our weekly videos, so we will probably introduce some kind of smaller jobs in between our big project videos so that we can maintain doing one video a week, and you get to see something a bit different as well. We've got plenty of maintenance jobs lined up and other tractor related content. So that's kind of what's coming up, because we do have quite a few challenges when it comes to the 3 Rideamatics project and our other projects, which are also on hold at the moment. But that is it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.